not on mute and it's not. So welcome back. It is Monday, and that means it is book recommendation day. So I'm excited to be here to give you some book recommendations. And today is May the 4th. And so everyone knows what that means. May the 4th be with you. So of course today I'm going to be recommending Star Wars books. All of these books are in the new Star Wars canon. So if you are a Star Wars fan, these are some books that you might want to check out. I've also tried to focus on books that even if you're a casual fan, you might like. I am not a super hardcore Star Wars fan that reads every single thing. I have watched all the movies. I am a Star Wars fan. I've read some of the books, but I don't keep up with every single thing that's going on. So my recommendations are going to be Star Wars books that I think would work for casual fans based on what you like. Also, I am wearing my Leia shirt today. This is one of my favorite shirts, Rebel Leia. So I'm also wearing Star Wars socks. So today is Star Wars Day, and I am celebrating. So May the 4th be with everyone, and I'm going to get started. The first thing I want to say about these books is that I feel like all of these authors are amazing. The lineup of authors that Star Wars is getting to write their books is really, really impressive. And so I'm excited about the new canon just because of the authors who are writing them. Some of my favorite authors are writing these books. So the first book that I'm going to talk about, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. The first book that I'm going to talk about is called Last Shot. And this is by Daniel Jose Older, who is actually a local author now here in New Orleans. And in this book, this is a Han Solo and Lando Calrissian adventure story. So in the past, in the Star Wars universe, there was this mysterious transmitter with unknown power, and there's a reward out for its discovery. And Lando tries first with L337 to try and recover this mysterious transmitter. And then later, a young Han tries to recover it as well, and they both fail. So this book takes place in the present. While they fail also in the past, it's good to note that they fail because the device's creator, who goes by the name of Faison Gore, isn't interested in sharing, and Gore holds a grudge. And so both Lando and Han have gone after this transmitter. Fast forward, it's now 10 years since Han Solo has seen Gore at all. They've now had the rebellion against the Empire. Han has started a family with Leia. He hasn't thought about this transmitter in a really, really long time, right? But then Lando shows up on Han's doorstep in the middle of the night and says that Faison Gore's assassins are after him, and he's running from them, and he needs Han's help. So, of course, a Han and Lando adventure ensues. So I would say if Han Solo is your favorite character, this is a definite must read. This book ties into the new Solo movie. And so if Han is your favorite, you have to read this book. Han and Lando are teamed up again, and they are on the run Lando's on the run from an assassin. And of course, all of Cloud City is in danger. And I really think that Daniel Jose Older is a really great storyteller. He's a great author. I like most of the things that he writes. So if you like Han Solo, you have to read this book. Again, it's called Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older for Han Solo fans. The next book I'm going to mention is, of course, for Princess Leia fans, because, of course, Leia is amazing. And so Claudia Gray, another fantastic author, she wrote this story. She actually has several Leia books, and I recommend, if you like Leia, even if you don't read any other Star Wars books, if you like Leia, you need to read Claudia Gray's Leia books because they're so, so good. This book is Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and it's actually YA. I mean, I just love any book about Leia, honestly, especially if Claudia Gray is writing it. But this book is young adult. It is about Leia as a teenager, and it is her story of how she comes to the rebellion. And so in this story, she's going through the process of preparing to prove her worthiness as the heir to the throne of Alderaan. And she notices her parents acting really secretive, and she's trying to find out why. And then she, of course, has to make a big decision on what she wants to do and on how she kind of wants to be part of this history and what she wants to do going forward. As a bonus, we also get to see with Haldo in this book, which is really, really cool as well, to see Haldo as a teenager and Leia as a teenager, and they're both trying to figure stuff out, and it's how they meet, how they become friends. Leia is really trying to prove herself and get, be a real princess, but there's all these other things going on. So it is very good. It is, Leia, how she came to the rebellion as a teenager. It's really great. And I actually read this book out loud for WRBH Reading Radio, which was really fun. And another Leia book that Claudia Gray wrote is called Bloodline. Excellent. So if you like Princess Leia, even if you don't read anything else, you should read Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and also Bloodline by Claudia Gray. Next, I'm going to talk about a book called Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse. And Rebecca Roanhorse is one of my favorite authors. She wrote a book called Trail of Lightning, and that series is really, really great. So this book is a sequel to The Rise of Skywalker. And in this book, the heroes of the Resistance, Poe, Leia, Rey, and Finn, they have to, of course, fight back. This is after the Rise of Skywalker. So the Resistance is in ruins. They have escaped from Crate. And what was once an army, is they're now just a bunch of wounded heroes. So Finn, Poe, Rey, Rose, Chewbacca, Leia, their names are now famous among the oppressed worlds that they fight to liberate. But of course, names can only get you so far. And Leia's last call for desperate aid has gone unanswered. So the shadow of the First Order is looming large, and the Resistance has to journey throughout the galaxy and seek more leaders and try to rebuild, of course, including those who helped a national rebellion topple an empire in the past. And of course, battles are fought, alliances are forged, and the Resistance will be reborn. So this takes place again. It's a prequel to The Rise of Skywalker. So it takes place in between the last two Star Wars movies, and it's about how the Resistance rebuilds to get to the point where it is in Rise of Skywalker. So I would say I love Poe in this book. Of course, Leia, is amazing as always. It has all of your favorites from the new Star Wars movies. So if you really like the new Star Wars movies, I would recommend reading Resistance Reborn. It's really fun. It's about how the Resistance comes together, and of course, gives you a lot of hope in this world. So Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse. If you like the new crew of Star Wars, I highly recommend reading that one. The next one is called Lando's Luck by Justina Ireland. And this is actually a middle grade Star Wars book, but it's really good. So I would recommend that adults read it as well. Of course, if you like Lando, if Lando is your main character, you have to read this book. And so, I feel like Lando was criminally underused in Solo, the new Star Wars movie Solo. And L3 is really great as a droid character, also criminally underused in that movie. So if you like Lando and you like L3, you have to read this book because they get a larger part here. And of course, their relationship as well is much more fleshed out in this book. So the premise of Lando's Luck is that Lando gets caught smuggling on the planet Hynestia, and the Queen agrees to let him go if he agrees to deliver something called the Solstice Globe to the Empire on her behalf. And Lando is like, oh, this is a simple delivery mission. No big deal. I can do this. But of course, things are not as simple as they seem. The Queen's daughter has stowed away on the Millennium Falcon and demands that Lando and L3 take the globe back to its home planet, which needs the globe to survive. Now, Lando has to choose between doing what's right or doing what's best for Lando, which is, always a Lando choice. But maybe he can do both. I think that some of the best new canon Star Wars books cater to middle grade and young adult readers. And in this book, it really captures Lando's voice perfectly. If you like Lando, again, you have to read this book. You will find yourself laughing out loud at the dialogue between this charming rogue and his droid co-pilot, L3. And again, they were criminally underused in Solo, and this book's filled that gap for me. And it's so nice to see L3 get a larger part and a more, tonally even relationship with Lando. And she and Lando, have to help this young princess return this captured treasure to her planet. It's a pulpy plot. It's an adventure plot. And again, if you like Lando, and especially Lando and L3 from Solo, you should really read this book. Again, I think middle grade YA Star Wars books are some of the best ones out there. So check this one out if you like Lando. It's called Lando's Luck by Justina Ireland. I have two more for you that I think you might like. The next one is called Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston. And this one is a little bit more deep into the Star Wars world, because this comes from Clone Wars. So if you haven't watched the TV show Clone Wars, that's where this comes from. So in Clone Wars, fans have long wondered what happened to Ahsoka after she left the Jedi Order near the end of the Clone Wars, and before she reappeared as Fulcrum in Star Wars Rebels. So this is her story about what happened to her in between Clone Wars and Rebels. Ahsoka is one of the most popular characters in the Star Wars universe, and everyone wants to know what happened to her in between these two shows. And so this finally tells you what happened to her. So it follows her experience with the Jedi and the devastation of Order 66. Ahsoka is unsure she can be part of a larger whole ever again, but her desire to fight the evils of the Empire and to protect those who need it lead her right to Bail Organa and the Rebel Alliance. So, of course, Ahsoka is a fan favorite, both behind the scenes and out in the world. She originally appeared in the Clone Wars as Anakin's Jedi apprentice, and she returned in Rebels. And she's appeared in a lot of Star Wars tie-in media. So Ahsoka is a fan favorite character. This book gives her a lot more interiority than the animated series did. So we find out a lot of her thoughts and feelings and what she is going through on the inside, which was really interesting. It also has a little bit for everybody. If you're a fan of the prequels of Star Wars, then you get to see how Ahsoka feels about losing her friendship with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And if you're a fan of the original trilogy of Star Wars, you'll get to take a look into how she began working with, but not within, the early rebellion. So it's kind of a little bit of everything for everyone. And of course, Ahsoka is a fan favorite. If you're a fan of Clone Wars and Rebels and you want to know what happened to Ahsoka in between the two, read this book, Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston. The last book that I have for you is called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate by Zoraida Cordova. I actually haven't read this book yet, but it is on my TBR list because it's fairly new and it sounds really cool. And so in this book, it follows two characters by the name of Izzy and Jules, and they're childhood friends. And they, of course, dream of adventures and invent silly games and do all the things that kids do together. But then Izzy's family leaves abruptly and they don't get a chance to say goodbye. Izzy's life comes in constant motion. They're traveling a lot. And then her parents are killed and she becomes a low-level smuggler to make ends meet. Jules, the other main character in this book, remains on Batuu, which is where they're from, and eventually becomes a farmer like his father, but of course always yearns for something more. So now it's been 13 years since Izzy has left, and Izzy is returning to Batuu because she's been hired to deliver this mysterious parcel, and she just wants to finish the job and get it done. But of course, she runs smack into the one person that still means something to her after all this time, Jules. So the attraction between them is, of course, immediate. And, you know, Izzy is hesitant because she doesn't know how she can really drag him into this perilous life that she's chosen. Jules is trying to figure out his future, but all he knows is that he wants to be with Izzy. And when Izzy's job goes wrong, because of course it does, this is Star Wars, these two childhood friends find themselves on the run. And, you know, of course, they're fighting to stay alive. So this is a Star Wars love story. And these are characters that it is expanding the world, which I really enjoy. It's why I liked Rogue One so much, because it's not focusing on the Skywalkers, it's focusing on something else. And I really enjoy seeing everything else that goes into the Star Wars universe. And so this is one of those books that's going to show us some other people, some other stories within the Star Wars universe, and I'm really excited to read it. So that one is Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate, Zoraida Cordova, also brand new. And so I am excited to read this one as well. So again, if you're a Star Wars fan, I'm going to briefly go over the books I recommended today. The first one was Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older. If you like Han Solo, read this book. Even if you don't read any others, read this book if you're a Han Solo fan. The next one was Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray. If you're a Leia fan, read this book and a book called Bloodlines by Claudia Gray. Her Leia books are amazing. If you like Princess Leia, you have to read these books. Resistance Reborn is by Rebecca Roanhorse, and this one is a prequel to Rise of Skywalker and shows how the Resistance comes back together. And it's good. This is a great one if you enjoy all of the new Star Wars movies and the new characters, Rey, Finn, Poe. If you enjoy all of them, this is a really good book for you to read. We have Lando's Luck by Justina Ireland. Of course, if you are a Lando fan and if you liked the very, very criminally underrepresented relationship between Lando and L3 in the new Solo movie, read this book. It expands on that a lot more. And if you're a Lando fan, you really have to read this one. Lando's Luck by Justina Ireland. We had Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston. Ahsoka, again, is one of the most popular fan favorite characters in the Star Wars universe. She's in Clone Wars and in Rebels. If you're interested in what happened to her between Clone Wars and Rebels, this is the book for you. And of course, if you like Ahsoka, this is the book for you as well. And finally, Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate by Zoraida Cordova. This is one that I haven't read yet, but it is a Star Wars love story that expands on the universe. So than just what we know about Star Wars in looking at more of the world, this would be a pick for you. So hopefully you enjoyed all of my recommendations today. Again, these are for kind of casual Star Wars fans. I mean, of course, if you're hardcore into Star Wars, you probably know about all of these books, but my recommendations are more for casual fans like me who love the movies. I've seen every movie multiple times and have read maybe a couple of the books, but you know, not every single thing that's out there. And I just like these characters and want to follow what's happening to them. So if that is you, these recommendations are for you. Of course, you can always purchase any of the books that we talk about on Bookstream here at bookshop.org/shop/chubbyandcoos. We have a list on there called Bookstream Recommendations, and everything that I talk about here on Bookstream, if I'm recommending it, it is on that recommendations list. So you can purchase any of the books there. Of course, you can always email us to purchase as well. It's info@chubbyandcoos.com. So if you're interested in any of these books, you can always go ahead and email us or buy it on our bookshop site. We've also just recently as well implemented a virtual tip jar. So if you don't necessarily want to buy any of the books, but you enjoy these videos and live streams and content that we're providing, you can toss a coin into our virtual tip jar. You can find that on our website, chubbyandcoos.com. And if you like all this content that we're bringing you and you want to support us, but you don't necessarily want to buy a book, go toss some pennies in there. And we appreciate that as well. And I think that is everything that I have for you today. Again, I am going to be here every single Monday at noon recommending books in different themes for you. So I will see you next Monday. Bye-bye.